Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being well-informed. Today, we're taking a plunge into the fascinating and maybe sometimes unsettling world of Edward Bernays.
Yeah, he's often called the father of public relations, right?
Exactly. And we've got a stack of sources here, including one we're calling architectofpublicopinion.pdf. Our mission today is really to unpack his core ideas, these psychological tricks he pioneered.
And how they still shape things today, often without us even realizing it.
Right. How public consent gets formed or maybe engineered. So let's start at the beginning. Who was Edward Bernays? Why is he such a big deal in communication history?
Well, he basically took public relations from just, getting your name out there, basic publicity, and turned it into something much more sophisticated, scientific even. He used psychology.
And those key books, Crystallizing Public Opinion back in 23 and Propaganda in 28, they're still foundational, aren't they?
Absolutely. They laid the groundwork. But you have to understand the time he was working in, early 20th century. Huge changes happening.
Like what specifically?
Well, you had universal suffrage expanding, mass production kicking into high gear, mass media radio, newspapers becoming incredibly influential.
Okay.
And Bernays was smart. He saw that in this new complex world, public opinion suddenly had, as he put it, unprecedented significance. It mattered more than ever.
And didn't his experience in World War I play a big role? The Committee on Public Information, the CPI?
Oh, massively. That was crucial. He worked on wartime propaganda, saw firsthand how incredibly effective those techniques were at swaying entire populations.
Right.
And the light bulb moment for him was realizing, hey, these techniques, they're not just for wartime. He said they could be applied with equal facility to peacetime pursuits.
So take wartime propaganda tools and use them for everything else, business, politics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That became the core belief. Public opinion could be molded, shaped, managed.
Which led him to this idea of an invisible government. That sounds kind of ominous.
It does, yeah. But his thinking was, look, democracy is getting big and messy. How do you manage it? He felt there was a need for mechanisms to, his word, regiment opinion.
Regiment it. Like line it up.
Sort of. He believed a rational few, an elite group, were needed to organize chaos. He saw this engineering of consent not just as a business service, but as essential for keeping society orderly.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting and maybe a bit controversial, this invisible government idea.
Yeah.
His core thesis was that society is basically run by this hidden group, people who consciously and intelligently manipulate the organized habits and opinions of the masses.
And most people don't even know who they are.
Right. He called them a heroic elite who pull the wires which control the public mind. I mean, that's a heck of a statement.
It is, and it comes from a pretty cynical place, really.
Yeah.
Bernays fundamentally believed that most people just aren't capable of clear, rational thought.
Ouch. Where did you get that from?
Well, several places. He was Sigmund Freud's nephew, so he was deep into Freud's ideas about unconscious desires driving everything we do.
The family connection.
Definitely. Then there was Gustave Le Bon's work on crowd psychology, the idea that groups are irrational, run by emotion and herd instinct, not logic.
Right, the group minds.
Exactly. And Wilfred Trotter's herd instinct theory, saying we carry group patterns even when alone, and we tend to follow leaders we trust.
Okay.
Plus, Walter Lippmann's book, The Phantom Public, which basically argued most citizens are driven by instinct and prejudice, not clear thinking.
So you took all these ideas, Freud, Le Bon, Trotter, Lippmann,
and mashed them together. His takeaway was, people, especially in groups, aren't rational actors. They're driven by hidden desires and instincts, and crucially, they can be guided.
Guided or manipulated?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? He framed it as guidance.
Which brings us to that term he coined, engineering consent. What did he mean by that exactly?
He described it using an engineering analogy. An engineer uses science, knowledge, tested methods to build something solid.
Yeah,
right.
A bridge or whatever.
Bernays said you apply that same rigorous scientific approach to getting people to support ideas or programs.
But the controversial part was claiming this was essential for democracy.
Exactly. He argued it was vital for the survival of democracy and just the logical result of how our society is set up.
Wow. So what does that do to the whole idea of democracy? Informed citizens making choices. It sounds like a total contradiction.
It absolutely is. How can you call it democratic society if you need conscious and intelligent manipulation to make it work? Is consent still consent if it's engineered?
That's the million-dollar question.
And critics jump all over this. They say, look, consent engineered like this, it's hard to tell it apart from the kind of consent you see in totalitarian states.
Right.
It really shows a deep skepticism, maybe even contempt, for the average person's ability to think for themselves and govern themselves rationally.
And he always pushed this idea that PR was scientific, didn't he?
Yes, consistently. Calling it scientific did a couple of things. It made the field seem more legitimate, more professional. But it also kind of gave him cover, a way to deflect ethical questions. Hey, we're just applying science.
We still see echoes of that today, right? With all the data-driven marketing and algorithms deciding what we see.
Absolutely. It's the same principle, just turbocharged with technology.
Okay, so he had this pretty cynical view of people and this idea of engineering their agreement. How did he actually do it? What was the playbook?
Well, first, he made a key distinction between individual psychology and group psychology.
Okay.
The group mind, he thought, runs on impulses, habits, and emotions.
Yeah.
And its main urge to follow a trusted leader.
Follow the leader. Makes sense.
But crucially, he also believed that even when you're alone, you carry those patterns stamped on you by the group. So group influence is always there.
And that Freudian idea that we're driven by unconscious desires, that was central.
Totally central. He believed, like Freud, that our thoughts and actions are often just compensatory substitutes for desires which we have been obliged to suppress.
Can you give an example?
His classic one was buying a car. You might say you need it for transport. That's the conscious reason.
Right. Getting from A to B.
But the unconscious desire might be for social status, power, a feeling of freedom. Bernays said those desires are the steam which makes the social machine work.
So if you understand those hidden desires,
you can tap into them. You don't sell the car. You sell the status. You create a want or a need by targeting those deep-seated feelings.
he also talked about the herd relying on cliches, pat words, or images. How did he use that?
He saw that as a shortcut to the emotions. You don't need complex arguments. Just manipulate the existing cliches or create new ones, like labeling a political opponent with the interests, vague but sounds bad, or using Bolshevik during the Red Scare to instantly trigger fear.
Simple, powerful words.
Exactly. Even subtle things, like during the war, changing evacuation hospitals to evacuation posts. Posts sounds less permanent, less scary.
Wow.
He also liked fostering a binary mentality. Us versus them, good versus bad. Simplify the choice, make people react emotionally, quickly.
And what about influencing leaders? Was that more efficient?
Hugely efficient. That was a core tactic. Influence the leaders. Sometimes they knew they were being influenced, sometimes maybe not.
Right.
And they would then automatically influence the group which they sway. Find the bellwethers.
So find the people others already trust and follow.
Precisely. He talked about group adherence and finding the coincidence of interests. Where does your client's goal overlap with what certain groups already want or believe? Get them on board.
This sounds way different from just old school selling.
Oh, completely. He called that old salesmanship. He wasn't trying to overcome sales resistance head on. No. He wanted to remove it by creating circumstances, creating a climate of opinion, generating psychological and emotional currents that naturally lead people to want the thing.
So they feel like it was their own idea.
That's the goal. Make it feel organic. It operates below the level of conscious awareness much of the time.
And that's how PR starts to shape not just buying habits, but like the whole social fabric, perceived reality.
Exactly. Which is why modern marketing is so often about selling a lifestyle, a set of values, not just a product. It's pure Bernays.
Okay, we get the theory, the playbook. Let's get concrete. We absolutely have to talk about Torches of Freedom, probably his most famous campaign.
Infamous, maybe, yeah. The goal was clear. Break the taboo about women smoking in public. Why? To sell more Lucky Strike cigarettes.
And the strategy.
Pure psychodrama. He consulted a psychoanalyst, A.A. Brill, a Freudian, who linked cigarettes to male power and suggested women would see smoking as challenging that power. Cigarettes as torches of freedom.
Wow.
So Bernays staged it. He got debutantes to light up cigarettes dramatically during the 1929 Easter Sunday parade in New York. Critically, he tipped off the press beforehand.
Made sure it became a news event.
Exactly. And it worked. The taboo wasn't broken overnight, but it was seriously weakened. Sales went up.
Though he later regretted promoting smoking, right?
He did, yes. Especially once the health links became undeniable.
Okay, what about a campaign that seems less loaded? Like bacon and eggs.
All right. Seems totally harmless. The objective was simple. Sell more bacon for the Beechnut Packing Company.
How'd he do it? People weren't eating big breakfasts.
Apparently not as much. So the strategy was position a hearty breakfast as healthy, medically advisable, and use experts to do it.
Ah, the paid experts again.
Yeah. He got a doctor who was on his PR agency's payroll to state that a heavy breakfast was better for health than a light one.
Okay.
Then he had this doctor survey 5,000 other doctors, asking if they agreed. Surprise, surprise, they did.
And then publicize the survey results.
Widely. Newspapers ran headlines. Doctors say heavy breakfast is healthy. And boom, bacon and egg sales soared. It became the true all-American breakfast.
So every time you order that, you're kind of living out a Bernays campaign.
Pretty much. It shows how deeply these engineered ideas can get embedded in the culture. It's incredible.
He also took on social norms directly, like with wristwatches for men.
Yeah, that's a great example. Wristwatches were seen as feminine, like jewelry. Men carried pocket watches. The objective, make wristwatches masculine, acceptable, desirable for men.
Wow.
Link them to heroism and practicality. The military context was key. Bernays helped persuade the U.S. Army that wristwatches were more practical for soldiers in the trenches than fumbling for a pocket watch.
Saved lives, even.
That was the argument. So the Army started issuing them. Once war heroes were wearing them, the feminine association just evaporated. Taboo, gone, sales up.
Okay, and then there are campaigns that feel, well, more ethically dubious, like the Dixie Cups one.
Yeah. The goal, get people to use disposable Dixie cups instead of reusable glasses, especially at water fountains.
How? By making reusable glasses seem gross.
Essentially, yes. Create a health scare. The strategy was fear. He set up a front group, the Committee for the Study and Promotion of the Sanitary Dispensing of Food and Drink. Sounds official, right?
Right.
They ran ads linking common drinking glasses to disease transmission, even hinting at things like venereal disease. It scared people into demanding disposable cups.
Yikes. Okay, let's shift gears to the really heavy stuff, the political campaigns. United Fruit Company in Guatemala.
Yeah, this is probably the darkest chapter. 1954. The objective, working for United Fruit and implicitly the U.S. government, was to overthrow Guatemala's democratically elected president, Jacobo Arbenz.
Oh.
Arbenz had initiated land reforms that threatened United Fruit's vast holdings. So the strategy was paint Arbenz as a dangerous communist puppet, a threat to the U.S., tapping into Cold War paranoia.
How did Bernays execute that?
A massive propaganda campaign. He planted articles in major U.S. newspapers like the New York Times, Time magazine. He flew influential journalists down for carefully managed tours, produced films, radio broadcasts, The Voice of Liberation, all designed to create the impression of a communist takeover.
And the result?
The CIA orchestrated a coup. Arbenz was overthrown. It led to decades of violence and instability in Guatemala. Bernays' role is heavily criticized for facilitating U.S. intervention and undermining democracy.
That's incredibly dark. But then, confusingly, he also worked on positive social campaigns, like the anti-lynching campaign for the NAACP.
It's a real contrast, isn't it? There, the objective was genuinely progressive. Change white attitudes in the South to combat the horror of lynching.
How was the strategy?
Dramatize the issue, make it visible, and crucially, get influential white Southerners involved. He advised the NAACP to hold its annual convention in Atlanta, a bold move then.
Putting it right in the heart of the issue.
Exactly, and they made sure to feature prominent black and white Southern men speaking out against lynching from the same platform. That was huge.
Yeah.
He ensured the news got out.
What was the impact?
It made a difference. Southern newspaper editorials started to shift. Public condemnation grew. While it didn't end lynching overnight, it contributed significantly to its decline and helped build racial consciousness. He actually got an award from the NAACP for it.
So the same men using similar underlying techniques.
Exactly. It shows the sheer breadth. Political coups, breakfast habits, civil rights, smoking.
The consistency is kind of astounding.
It really is. The psychological methods were the same, regardless of the goal. Identify those unconscious desires or fears, use trusted leaders or experts, often paid ones, create symbolic events, the Easter Parade, the Atlanta Convention, even things like ivory soap sculpting contests for kids to get publicity.
Right, creating news instead of just reporting it.
Precisely. Amplify it all through the media. Make it look organic, like it's bubbling up from the grassroots. That's why it was so effective. You can definitely see the seeds of modern astroturfing and influencer marketing right there.
Okay, the ethical side of this. It's impossible to ignore. How have people generally viewed his legacy, given this huge range from, selling bacon to facilitating coups?
Well, The criticisms are substantial, as you'd expect. He's accused of manipulating public opinion, undermining individual autonomy, damaging democratic values.
Some even use the term brainwashing.
Yes. People argue his work often suppressed dissent and just made people passive consumers or citizens. Even campaigns like Torches of Freedom, framed as liberation, ultimately pushed a dangerous product using feminist ideals.
Right.
And the United Fruit work is almost universally condemned as ethically bankrupt, basically enabling imperialism and causing immense human suffering.
And that comparison keeps coming up. Engineered consent versus the consent in modern totalitarian government.
Yeah. It's a stark comparison. Bernays himself, though, had a different view, or at least presented one.
How do you justify it?
He argued propaganda or public relations was necessary in a democracy, that it served a social purpose. He tried to blur the lines, famously saying something like, advocating for what we believe in is education. Advocating for what we don't believe in is propaganda.
Convenient definition.
Very. Critics say this just created psychic ease, making people comfortable with being manipulated, less likely to engage critically.
But despite all that criticism, you look around today, and his fingerprints are everywhere, aren't they?
Absolutely everywhere. His core insights about psychology, group behavior, using symbols, leveraging media, they're the foundation of almost the entire modern media, advertising, and political communication landscape.
He really did invent the playbook.
He did. And he also pioneered the two-way model of PR, the idea that organizations shouldn't just talk at the public, but also listen and adapt, even things like corporate social responsibility. Using PR to shape views on broader social issues, you can trace that back to him, too.
What about that invisible government idea? Has that just become normalized? The idea that unseen forces are shaping our opinions within democracies.
I think to some extent, yes. It points to this fundamental shift he helped engineer. The relationship between power, government, corporations, and the public. The old ideal of the perfectly informed, rational citizen making independent choices.
Yeah.
It gets implicitly replaced by a model where public opinion needs to be actively managed, guided for society or business to function smoothly. Accountability gets fuzzy when the influence is covert.
And that contradiction we mentioned earlier, Bernays claiming he had ethical standards, wouldn't take antisocial clients, only promoted ideas he respected.
Right.
But then you have the tobacco work he regretted, and United Fruit, which seems impossible to square with that.
That tension is still incredibly relevant today. Anyone working in PR, marketing, political campaigns faces it. Where's the line between persuasion and manipulation? How do you balance your client's objectives with the public good, especially when profit or power is the main goal? What's your moral responsibility? It's the enduring ethical dilemma he left us with.
So Edward Bernays, he fundamentally changed public communication, didn't he? Turned it into this complex, psychology-driven field. And those principles, they're still deeply embedded in our society.
For sure. And remember, he theorized that technical means would be developed to regiment opinion.
Yeah.
Well, think about today. Big data, social media algorithms, AI crafting personalized messages, those technical means are exponentially more powerful and sophisticated than anything he could have dreamed of.
So the invisible government is potentially even more invisible and more effective now.
Arguably, yes. It operates through these incredibly tailored appeals, hitting our specific psychological buttons. It makes his original ideas seem almost quaint, but they were truly prophetic blueprints.
What strikes me most looking back at all this is that fundamental tension his work throws into sharp relief.
Yeah.
It's still unresolved.
Absolutely. It's the clash between the democratic ideal, informed citizens governing themselves, and what feels like the practical reality or perceived necessity of managing public opinion to keep things sterile, keep the economy humming.
Right.
And that forces us, especially now with so much disinformation flying around, to really question what consent even means when it's engineered.
It really does.
So the question for you, the listener, becomes, what kind of democracy are we actually building if it relies so heavily on managing thought? And what duty do those with this persuasive power have to ensure they're serving the public good, not just narrow interests? It's something we all need to think critically about.